Have you ever stopped and really looked at the buildings around you and wondered, what are they actually saying about us? What if the blueprint for our cities wasn't just about steel and glass, but about ethics, about community, maybe even something sacred? Well, today, we're going to explore how an ancient faith gives us a surprisingly modern ethical guide for how we build our world, and it's all based on some fascinating research. I mean, look around any big city. You see these incredible feats of engineering, right? Towers shooting up into the sky. But do they feel like they belong? Do they genuinely connect with the people living and working around them? Or do they just feel a bit, I don't know, generic? Almost like they could be anywhere, and in the end, kind of soulless. So on one side, you have these structures that could be anywhere on the planet. And on the other, you have architecture that feels rooted, warm, and built with real purpose. The research paper we're digging into today argues that this disconnect, it all happens when we forget one absolutely crucial first step. And this right here is the central question the research poses. It's this idea that before a single line is ever drawn on a blueprint, the whole project should be grounded in a set of values, a framework that serves the community, that respects the environment, and yeah, that reflects a much, much deeper purpose. Okay, so let's break this down. First, we'll look at the problem with a lot of modern construction. Then, we'll dive into the incredible Islamic concept of what it actually means to build. We'll see how sacred texts guide this whole idea, lay out a really practical framework, and then finally, we'll ask that big question again. What do our buildings truly say about us? So what's the problem exactly? Well, the research points to this critical gap right at the beginning of so many projects. There's just no clear ethical compass. And without that, you can end up with buildings that look amazing, but completely fail the communities they're supposed to serve. The paper really zeroes in on these key issues. See, when projects are just driven by technical specs or the latest trends from halfway across the world, they can feel, well, alienating. They might not actually serve the real needs of the people there. And worse, they can end up clashing with the community's core values and its very identity. All right, so how do we build on a different foundation? The research suggests it all starts with the very language we use. In this case, there's an Arabic word for building that reveals a whole worldview that goes way beyond just construction. That word is bina. Now, on the surface, sure, it means a building, but its linguistic root, it's all about establishing something strong, making sure it lasts, making it cohesive. It's not just about stacking bricks. It's about creating something with permanence and unity. And here's where it gets really interesting. The paper shows that bina has this amazing dual meaning. The exact same word you use for a physical building is also used to talk about founding a family or establishing a community. It suggests that both of them need a strong foundation, they need cohesion, and they're both meant to last. Now, this deep understanding of building isn't just some neat linguistic trick. It's rooted right in Islam's core texts, the Quran, and the teachings of the Prophet, which we call the Sunnah. And you know what? These texts offer some incredibly powerful metaphors for today's engineers and planners. And this quote just captures the idea so brilliantly. The sky itself is described as a bina, a perfectly constructed canopy over our heads. I mean, think about that. It's the ultimate symbol of a strong, protective, and perfectly balanced design. What a powerful source of inspiration for anyone who builds. The Quran also gives this powerful analogy of two different builders. Imagine one who builds on a solid foundation of piety and awareness of God. The paper translates this in an engineering sense to mean honesty, quality design, and good work. Then there's the other builder, who builds on the edge of a crumbling cliff, a metaphor for corruption, shoddy work, and, you guessed it, inevitable collapse. The message couldn't be clearer. The ethical foundation is every bit as critical as the physical one. And this engineering metaphor is just as striking. Believers standing together in unity are compared to a bunyan marsus, a solid, seamlessly interlocked structure, almost as if it were welded together with molten lead. The image that creates is one of incredible strength, of total cohesion, with absolutely no weak spots. But hang on, this brings us to a really common question. What about that famous prophetic tradition that mentions people competing in constructing lofty buildings as one of the signs of the end times? Does that mean building tall skyscrapers is actually forbidden? So the crucial point the research makes here is that this isn't a ban on height. It's a critique of the motive. The tradition has a warning against building stuff out of pure vanity,
arrogance, or just a desire to show off and compete with your neighbor. But if a tall building serves a real community need, like housing or public services, well, that's a completely different story. At the end of the day, your intention is everything.
And this beautiful analogy really brings it all back home to the community. The Prophet described believers as being like a single building, where every single brick is essential and strengthens all the others. It's the perfect summary of that whole Bina concept, a society built on mutual support, just like a well-designed structure. So, these principles are profound, right? But are they just nice philosophical ideas? Not at all. The paper shows how they can be translated into a practical, ethical checklist for any project, anywhere in the world, starting today. And what's fantastic here is how the research distills these complex Islamic legal ideas, like the fiqh of priorities, which is all about figuring out what a community really needs first, and the principle of no harm, into 4 simple questions. Before you even start a project, you ask, why am I really doing this? Is this a genuine priority for the people here? Will this cause any harm? And does it truly serve the public good? And that brings us to our conclusion, because when we start to apply this kind of ethical filter, we remember that the things we build, they are so much more than just shelters or offices. They're a message we are sending to the future. And this really is the ultimate takeaway from the research. A building is never neutral. Every single structure we put up makes a statement. It reflects our priorities, it reflects our values, our concern for our neighbors, and our vision for the kind of society we actually want to build together. So the next time you look at the skyline of your city or your town, ask yourself, what story is it telling? Is it a story of vanity and division, or is it a story of community, of purpose, and of care? What does your built environment say about you?